Recording in progress.
Hello, everyone. I'm Darcy Drager, the chair of the Morris County Democratic Committee, and we are here with CD11 special election candidate Analilia Mejia. And she is joining us today to let us know more about her vision and goals for the 11th district. Before we get started, I'm going to have our screening committee members introduce themselves so you know who is on the call, Analilia. And we will start with Shari.
Hi, Analilia. My name is Sherry Seffer. I am the chair of the Montville Township Democratic Committee. Welcome.
Thank you.
Christine.
Hello, Christine Clark, member of the New Jersey Democratic State Committee, Vice Chair in Jefferson, and recent state Senate candidate. Welcome.
Nice to see you again.
Likewise.
Donna.
Hi, Analilia. I'm Donna Gariglia. I am the mayor of Morris Township, and I'm a member of the Morris Township Democratic Committee and a district rep.
Awesome. Nice to see you.
See you.
Sandra.
Hi, Analilia. I'm Sandra Whitner, and I'm a council member in the town of Dover.
Awesome. Nice to almost see you, Sandra.
Yeah, sorry. I'm like cuddled up in bed with my kid.
As you should.
Judy.
Hi, Analilia. I'm Judy Hernandez from Parsippany. I'm a council person in Parsippany, and I'm also on the vice chair of the Parsippany Democratic Committee.
Awesome. Greetings, Judith.
Tim.
Hi, Analilia. How are you?
I am well. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. I am still the mayor of Morristown and also the vice chair of the local Democratic Committee.
So great to see you again.
Then finally, Mike.
Analilia, I'm here from Phoenix. You're the only one I'm going to be able to dial in for, so I hope you appreciate that.
Of course, always, Mike.
Vice Chair of the Morris County Democrats, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
then we also have Adam Cohen, who is our executive director, and he is running all the technical things for us. So thank you, Adam, again, for your assistance.
Yes, thank you, Adam.
So I would love to kick things off with a question about vision and motivation. If you could please tell us about yourself, what inspired you to run for Congress in CD11, and what is the core message you would like to bring to voters?
Okay. Well, first, thank you for making time to both be here this morning or afternoon. Actually, it's time's a blur. And also for those who are joining after the fact, watching this video. My name is Analilia Mejia. I am a longtime resident in Glen Ridge, New Jersey. I've lived here for 13 years, raising my two sons with my husband. I will say that I've never imagined running for office. To be transparent, for 25 years, I have worked behind the scenes, building up our democratic institutions, helping move policies that really uplift families. I'm an organizer, and so for 25 years, I've just been working, trying to create the kind of community that has the power to govern for everyone. So many folks maybe don't know me, but you would be familiar with work that I have done. As I said, I led the campaign to raise the minimum wage to 15. In fact, in January, it goes up a little bit more because we fought to include cost of living increases. I fought to make sure that all workers have paid sick leave. To be honest, I was moved by the fact that when I was a kid, my mother, if I got sick, sometimes I would be afraid to even tell my parents because I knew that they would have to take a day off from work, that it would mean less groceries in our refrigerator and in our pantry. And so I was proud to be able to move a policy that honestly I would have benefited from as a child myself. I will say that my motivation to run is really rooted in just being connected to community and knowing the moment that we're in. I keep saying this, I'll say this to you all. I deeply believe that we are at a crisis point in our nation. We have rising authoritarianism that has frankly captured our government. We have a radicalized Supreme Court that are stripping us of our constitutional protections. The truth is, as a woman of color, as the daughter of immigrants, I have less constitutional protections today than I did a year ago. And that is true for so many. In fact, I believe that if any of us lose constitutional protections or our rights, we all lose them because it's a slippery slope. I will share that my biggest motivation is that I believe that government isn't the problem. I think government is the way in which we get together and make solutions and decide how we're going to govern ourselves, how we're going to live our lives. The problem is when big money, when special interest, when self-interest takes over and politics get placed over people. And so when I watched what I felt was a giant letdown by leaders in, frankly, just again, to be transparent, leaders in the Democratic Party. When I saw the giant letdown in the way the government shutdown ended, the fact that the fight that we were putting up to protect healthcare was thrown to the wayside, and to know that it takes people power and folks who are beholden to regular people versus special interests to actually govern for the common good, I decided to jump in. I think that I offer a strong voice that will fight for regular people, and I look forward to earning y'all's support.
Great. Thank you so much. Tim, over to you.
All right, let me get unmuted. Okay, so my question is going to be on policy, priorities, and solutions. What are the top 2 or 3 issues you plan to tackle if elected, and what specific solutions would you propose? Please move beyond describing problems and articulate actionable plans.
Okay. There are many. I think first and foremost, I think that our families right now are being crushed by an economy that, you're not protected by zip code. I am talking to my neighbors on a daily asking for their support, and what I'm hearing is, families that were dependent on 2 incomes have lost incomes, have lost jobs. Independent contractors or small business owners have lost business, and it's having an impact on themselves and their economic stability. Tariffs have hit us hard. High prices at the grocery store have hit us hard. And there is plenty that Congress should be doing to ensure that we not only have smart economic policies, but that we have safety nets when people find themselves in these conditions. So I would say, one, I think when elected to Congress, I would be fighting this administration and their willy-nilly-ness around the economy, fighting and pushing for Congress to uphold not only funding that has been appropriated to safety net programs, to different divisions within our government, but also organizing within Congress so that we can make demands. I look at our ideological opponents and I can see that strong, organized people can shape and make demands. And that is what I would bring into Congress. To be more specific, I also want to share that I think it is incredibly important for us to ensure that there's tax fairness at every level. I don't know if folks are aware, but even something as small as the fact that there is a cap on Social Security, on a cap on income that is taxed on Social Security. That cap makes it harder to ensure Social Security is solvent and that safety net is available for all of us. There are so many places and spaces in government in which Congress can ensure equity and fairness and ensure that we not only have a safety net, but strong policies. I think the last thing that I will add, y'all, is that I think Congress and members of Congress have abdicated their constitutional duty to the American people. When I look at, for example, the strikes, the illegal strikes that the Trump administration are carrying out, stoking the possibility of war across the Americas. When I think about, again, the withdrawal of appropriated funds, the overreach by the executive has to be checked by our Congress and members of Congress. So when elected, I will be the kind of voice that will not only demand that Congress do its job by the people, but also use the platform to ensure regular people understand what is happening in this moment. I could go on and on about whether it's the PRO Act for union members or fighting for the Gateway Tunnel, but the bottom line is, y'all, that members of Congress have two levers. They can legislate to ensure that we have fairness in our economy, in our systems, in our government, and they have the leverage and power and reach of the bully pulpit. As an organizer, if I'm sent to Congress, I promise to use both of those levers to ensure justice and equity for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sandra.
All right, Analilia, my question is about experience and qualifications. How does your background and professional experience prepare you to represent CD11 effectively in Congress?
Thank you. Thank you, Sandra, for the question. You know, it's interesting. A lot of people mostly know me as either I was Bernie's political director or as an organizer, grassroots organizer in New Jersey. I welcome the opportunity to share a little bit more about my background and experience. I'll share, I'm a Jersey girl, and I went to Rutgers University, both undergrad and graduate school, where I got my master's in labor and in public policy. And I immediately went to be a union organizer because unions actually liberated my family from poverty. I spent many years organizing workers across the country. I say y'all because I spent time in Texas organizing, custodial workers and security guards. I worked organizing grocery store workers in Chicago and just across the country. My previous experience in New Jersey includes being the government affairs liaison at the New Jersey Department of Health, where again I was fighting for and ensuring that we had an opportunity. We had the kind of government and safety net programs that honestly I benefited from when I was a child. I then went on to lead the New Jersey Working Families, where I worked closely with some folks, even on this call, to pass earned sick days, minimum wage, to fight for transparency and democracy and tax fairness. I left that role to join the Bernie Sanders presidential campaign, where I not only served as the political director for the senator, but when he withdrew from the race, the senator asked me to staff what were called the unity task forces between Senator Sanders and President-elect Joe Biden. And what we did was I spent essentially a summer working with leaders from across the Democratic Party, finding the overlap between progressive policy ideas and other mainstream policy ideas, and finding the touch points that can win for American people. Much of that work results in what we then call the Build Back Better agenda, and the alphabet soup that was the IRA, the IJA, etc. I then went into the administration. I was appointed as the deputy director of the Women's Bureau in President Biden's Department of Labor. I will share that the reason I was happy and joyful to take that role is because I saw the Department of Labor as one of the places in which you could touch every single American life. And the Women's Bureau in particular allowed me to work with communities that are often marginalized. Now, I lead what is an organization called the Center for Popular Democracy. It is a network of organizations that are across the country engaging regular people, bringing them into civic participation. We don't just think about left, right, we think about in, out. How do we bring back those 90 million voters who abstained from civic participation to our collective harm? So as I share all of that so that you know that I have a varied experience that essentially boils down to effectiveness at talking to and connecting with voters, effectiveness in creating, writing, and pushing smart policy that helps working people, effective at organizing community and making connections across community so that we can win together across the political spectrum and across even our Democratic Party. Most folks don't know that extensive background because I generally have worked behind the scenes, content to uplift ideas and people and leaders. But in this moment, I think it requires boldness and it requires an organizer that could really push not only our party, but our nation and build back to where we were and beyond to where we actually want our nation to be. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Judy.
Hi, Analilia. This question is on I can't even speak, electability and campaign strategy. What is your strategy to win this seat in the special election, including outreach to key voter groups and in your district, in the district?
Thank you. Thank you, Judith, for the question. Great question. I mean, y'all, I keep saying this. I'm an organizer that understands that the way in which we actually can win is through community. I am a deep believer in distributive organizing. That means that you not only identify people that support you on an issue, but then you empower them to become leaders who connect within their community. The only way we actually win as a Democratic Party is to rebuild our party. We are losing races that we should not lose. And it's not because people don't care. And it's not because people, are not smart enough to engage. None of that is true. What is happening is that we need to go back to the basics, deep organizing, deep canvassing, reaching out to regular people, talking to people that don't often agree with you, and then engaging them in a way that makes them feel heard. So again, as an organizer, what I'm applying to this race is understanding where are the communities that are impacted. I know where there are places across this community in which folks are losing jobs and feel like they're falling behind. I know where there are places in this community in which climate change and flooding is wreaking havoc with our people. I know that there are communities, pockets in this community in which, like myself, as a mother with children with 504 plans, that are distraught at the idea of the Department of Education or other safety nets being crushed. And so I'm talking to people about the things that keep them up at night, and then I'm empowering them in this campaign to be leaders because I don't think I win alone. My campaign is not about I or me. My campaign is about us. And that is how I believe we will win. Last thing I'll say is that I look across these 3 counties that comprise this district. I look in particular at Morris County, and I see the pockets of community in which, people stretch to be in our communities. People feel themselves, they may not go into an economic tailspin out of, one day of an increase in price of eggs or maybe one economic hit, but the accumulation of what's happening across our community, folks are feeling it, very, very deeply. And I know it because I'm talking to regular people. Even before I launched this campaign, I talked to regular people, to my neighbors, I organize folks, and I know that folks are hurting and we need to speak to it if we are going to not only win, but rebuild. Thank you, Judith.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Shari.
Hi, Analilia. My question is with regard to leadership and collaboration. Congress requires negotiation and coalition building. Can you give a specific example from your career where you successfully worked across differences and party lines to achieve a goal?
Yes, so I have to say that power concedes nothing without a demand. I do ascribe to that idea. I think that in order for us to be able to negotiate across different communities, we have to have our base organized and empowered. So in times in which I've been able to work across either political spectrum or aisle, it starts with this idea of ensuring that you have your people organized. I'll use earned sick days as an example. Okay. When we worked to pass the earned sick day policies across New Jersey, the first thing we tried to do was to move a state bill that would not only cover all workers but could gain traction. And to be transparent, we hit a wall. We weren't able to, not only did we have opposition from folks within the Republican Party, but to be transparent, we didn't have the level of support that we needed in order to get it done. Even amongst the Democratic leadership were raising either concerns or were not as committed to pushing this policy. So we had to develop a different strategy that organized our people so that we can win a smart policy. In Morristown, for example, we worked to organize community to pass a municipal bill. In fact, we passed 13 bills across New Jersey, setting all equal, all similar bills, but we did it so that we could build the kind of support at the grassroots level that would make it possible to win that bill at the state level. While doing this work at the municipal, we were pointing to and understanding what were the concerns of, for example, the business community. And initially had the kind of pushback because the concerns that folks were expressing were very valid. Will we have a patchwork of bills? Will we have unfair competition across the state? When we were able to address those concerns, again, through our strategy, we were able to win a policy that maybe didn't make everyone happy and jump up and down, but it did serve the interest of New Jersey workers and working families. You have to be creative to be able to win on policy. You have to be responsive to the concerns of those who are ideologically opposed, and you have to build the base who will then fight for the policy. One person doesn't win anything. We win things together. Thank you for the question, Sherry.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Christine.
Hello. So my question is about party building. I know you've already touched on some of this, but if you could remind us of some of the work you've done. Please describe your efforts to help elect Democrats at the local, state, or federal level.
I will say there's so many examples that I could give. I just believe that we have a responsibility to each other. Right. So I start from that place. I believe that I need to be in order. It's insufficient to complain about whether it's government or ideas, policy ideas, etc., if you're not involved. So I start with, I think we build our party by talking to each other and understanding what are the things that are keeping us up at night. I think we need to run our voices, our community leaders, and empower them to be able to take on these different positions. On multiple times, I have helped elect, whether it was my first race was a school board race in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and my most recent was trying to get elected our new governor. And everything in between, whether it's municipal, state, federal level, the secret has always been you engage with people authentically. You understand what are the issues that are impacting them. You identify solutions. And when we fight, we have to, and quote unquote fight on our issues, we have to stay attuned that we need to always come back as community. I ascribe to lessons that Martin Luther King actually taught our nation and our progressive movement, the idea of beloved community. The idea that you can be in opposition, you could be in opposition on an idea, but that you do not discard or throw away the individual. And that after you have tussled on policy and you have to work to come back together. So I'll close on this question by saying, whether it was helping write the platform in 2020 for the Democratic Party, whether it was supporting the transition team of Joe Biden and going into the administration, whether it was leading the political work for a major presidential candidate, or whether it was that first school board election so many years ago, like 30 years ago. In every one of those instances, I've stayed true to morals and values and a compass that tells me that we have a duty to each other, that none of us make it through this world alone, and that it is by building community, informing people, engaging folks, and always rebuilding that beloved community can we ultimately win the kind of nation and world that our children deserve, that we deserve. Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Right, excellent. So that brings us to the end of our first section. The next part is we have a question of you're currently running in the CD11 special election primary. And do you think, would you still pursue the seat in the special election or in the regular election cycle should you not be the winner of the special election primary?
Oh, I believe that we should come together and ensure that we protect the seat for Democrats. I think I'm putting myself before voters, asking them to consider my candidacy, to look into my history, to talk to people who know me personally, who could attest to the fact that I am tenacious, that I am consistent, that I am hardworking, that I am aligned in values, that I am the kind of steadfast person, leader, organizer that you would want to have in Congress. But I'm also the kind of party builder that wouldn't tear us apart in a moment in which we need to come together. Y'all, there's so much at stake in 2026. It's not even funny that in my day job, I work in trying to flip congressional districts so that our party can, in fact, win in 2026 and rebuild from this Democratic backslide. We can't tear each other apart at the most critical moment. So I'm a team player, but I will say that for everyone listening, I think that I am the best candidate because I have a record of upholding what is right and just for the common good. I have a record of standing up. It's easy to stand up to your opponents. It's harder to stand up to your friends when they're doing something wrong. I've always been committed to working to ensure that regular people have the building blocks that they need. And that's what you would get with me as your next member of Congress.
Excellent. Thank you so much. For your candidate specific question, in
Mhm.
your work as a labor and worker rights advocate, you've supported policies that expand workplace protections and strengthen collective bargaining. Some critics argue these measures can create cost pressures for small businesses, as you alluded to a little before. How do you assess these trade-offs, and how would that experience guide your approach to federal labor and economic policy for communities within CD11 specifically?
Okay. So I'll start by sharing a personal story and then how I think it connects to CD11. Um, so I'll start with, you know, I come to this work as an organizer, as someone that believes in building justice and community together. I come to this work um, anchored on when I was a child, when I was around 10, 11. It's that moment in which you are not only understanding where you are spatially, but where you are on the social strata. At around that time, I recall looking at my parents, opening the refrigerator, finding it bare, and questioning what was wrong with my family that we couldn't. My parents worked 2 and 3 jobs, and we didn't have enough food in the refrigerator. I remember when the lights would get cut off because my parents couldn't afford to pay the bill. And to be honest, I judged them. I thought that something was fundamentally wrong with the 2 adults that were supposed to protect us. And yet there were times in which, we felt hungry or insecure. And then there was a moment in my family's life in which my mom, my mother worked in two sweatshop jobs. She would clock out a first shift, walk down the street, clock into a second shift. My father worked at Singer making sewing machines until one day he fell down a flight of steps and broke his back. And my family was completely uh, harmed, economically harmed by that moment. In fact, my mom had to send my sister and then I to live with my grandmother in Venezuela because she couldn't afford the privilege of motherhood. And it's around 11 or 12 that my mom's friend calls her up and tells her that at a unionized sweatshop, at a unionized sewing factory, my mom would be able to quit those two other jobs. And with that one job, she would be able to make ends meet because they had a union. And when my mom, she scraped together pennies to take the train into New York. She then got on that train and she talked her way into that job. And then she found herself back at Penn Station looking at faces, trying to figure out who she could beg to have enough resources to go back home and start this new life. And she managed to stop a young man who listened to her story and was moved by her gumption and gave her not only enough money to go home, but to come back and start this new life. When my mother became a unionized lady garment worker, our family completely changed. We went from food instability to, I remember my dad driving us all the way down to Disney World, to Orlando. And I'll admit, we slept in the van on the way down, but gosh darn it, my family was able to have this experience simply because my mom went from a job in which she was frankly underpaid and undervalued. And then she went to a job in which she had the protections of a union. And because we had that new economic stability, we were able to change our diet. We were able to eat healthier food. We were able to go shopping. We were able to go to Disney World. I was able to dream about going to college and having a place in this America. So when we talk about economic stability and growing the economic power of not only small businesses but our families, we have to acknowledge that we are a consumer driven economy. And when regular families have the resources to engage in the economy, our small businesses grow, our economy grows, our education levels grow. I wouldn't be here in front of you if I wouldn't have had that opportunity that unionized job gave my family. I'll also share what I alluded before. When I was a child, I would feel fear about letting my, one moment, I'm
Feel like this is the CNN moment where the kids
yes,
like cruise
yes.
in.
I'm like, the dog is barking and every,
It's all
lunch
good.
just arrived.
We get it.
Yes. This is what American life feels like these days. We're all on top of there's so many things happening at once. But anyway, what I was sharing is, as a child, I found myself, fearful of telling my mother when I felt ill because I knew that if she had to take a day off from work, I knew the feeling. I knew the sadness that I would in fact see in her eyes. In fact, I remember one particular time in which I hid a sore throat so long that by the time my parents were able to take me to the federally qualified health clinic, to the free clinic, and figure out that I had strep throat, I had to be immediately given a shot and given all of these antibiotics to try to get me well because my throat was closing up. A child shouldn't make those decisions, but they do because we have policies that, frankly, leave people behind. Thankfully, in New Jersey, we have worked together to figure out solutions that not only work for regular people, for working class and regular people, but also for small businesses. Because again, when our communities are healthy and have economic stability, our small businesses, our economy grows. And now on CD11, I've shared I'm Colombian and Dominican. My father owned a bodega when I was a kid, including a bodega cat. And I know that there are, again, across our district, we have small business owners, we have entrepreneurs, we have community folk that not only are trying to create jobs and trying to create opportunities for each other, but they are dependent on a vibrant, healthy, economically sound consumer or workforce. Last thing I will say is, again, in the conversations I'm having with folks, it doesn't matter what zip code you're in. I look at my community in Glenridge when I talk to my neighbors about how they're experiencing this moment. Even folks who are doctors, lawyers, that on paper they seem very economically secure. The fact that health insurance has doubled for them is sending people into an economic crisis. The fact that college is unaffordable for so many is leaving folks who are trying to strive to move their children through education and into opportunities. They're putting them into crisis. We are not immune for what is happening in this district. It doesn't matter if you live in Bloomfield, in Belleville, in Glenridge, in Livingston, in Morristown, Parsippany, Dover, you name it. We are being crushed, and we need Congress members who will not only speak to that, but will fight for it and then come into our districts and engage people so that together we can make these demands. So thank you for the question, Darcy.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your very thoughtful questions. This brings us to the end of our sort of like detailed background and policy questions. And now we just have a brief lightning round, yes, no questions, just to confirm support of some basic democratic platform ideas. So, Donna?
Okay, you ready for your policy lightning round?
Oh my gosh, I don't know, but let's go.
Here we
I
go.
don't know if I'm ready or not. Let's do it, Donna.
Do you support access to affordable health care for all, including protections for pre-existing conditions?
Absolutely, yes.
Do you support policies that promote racial, gender, and LGBTQ plus equity?
Yes, absolutely, without question.
Do you support policies to address climate change and expand clean energy?
Absolutely. Climate change is real, and there's many policies and interventions that we can take.
Do you support reproductive rights, including a woman's right to choose?
Absolutely. I would actually not be alive today. I had to have a medically necessary abortion of a very wanted pregnancy. And if it wasn't for my ability to choose and be able to protect myself, my health, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Do you support protecting and expanding voting rights?
Absolutely. In fact, I have fought hard to ensure that not only in New Jersey, but nationally, we have protected our voting rights. Folks may recall the Democracy Act, where we were fighting for either pre-registration or expanding automatic voter registration. I think that we must, in fact, protect and expand voter protections.
And last one, do you support comprehensive immigration reform, including a path to citizenship for undocumented immigrants?
Absolutely. I think that the American people are looking at what's happening across our nation with horror. The mistreatment of immigrants in this moment, the lack of due process and equal protection is actually putting us all at risk. As the daughter of immigrants, I not only support immigration reform, but I know that my neighbors, my community, they look at that chaos, they look at that horror, and they reject it. I think that there are measures that can ensure a equitable path, a fully funded path that would allow people, our government, to more quickly assess and give people answers as to whether or not they're going to be able to build their lives here instead of waiting for years in a process that then leaves them in limbo and they've established roots. So yes, without question, Donna.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so that brings us to the end of our regular question round. Are there any follow-up questions from members of our screening committee?
I have one.
I saw Sherry was about to jump in. I was like, let's go, Sherry.
Okay. Analilia, with regard to our specific towns here in Morris County, is there a particular issue in any of our towns that you would like to address as part of your platform?
Yeah, well, there's a couple. as I'm sure, like y'all, commuting in, there are many people across our communities that commute into the city, and the lack of infrastructure investment is actually really harming our ability to engage with family or just have like the quality of life that we all deserve. I think that there are, you know, I think integration of communities. I think what is happening again across immigrant communities, we're feeling not only across the district, but I would say there are communities in Dover and Parsippany in particular who are very frightened about the aggressive and illegal actions that are being taken against immigrant communities across not only the district, but specifically in Morris. I'll also say that there are other things, whether it's, cleanup of different sites, forgive me, cleanup of either the Whippany River cleanup project, which obviously impacts folks in the community, or ensuring that we are strengthening our EPA so that our water infrastructure grants actually make it into community. These are all little things that maybe you don't think about on a daily if you're a voter, but they are critical and important for any member of Congress, any representative to tackle almost immediately, because access to water, protections from floodings, making sure that our communities are safe to raise children, or the idea that constitutional protections should be applied to all of us, all of those things impact us. And I know members of the community across this district are like, it keeps them up at night. We should work on it together. Thank you, Sherry.
John Aiden, one of our screening committee members who is not able to join us today, has a question. Running for office can be grueling. It's an endurance sport. It's a big lift. It requires a lot of candidates. But what about this? What about what you're doing? What makes you happy?
Oh man, I love I love talking to people. I love the idea of building community, of training folks, teaching folks early what I have learned late. I love the idea of regular people coming together, identifying things that they care about, and then figuring out solutions together. It gives me such joy to know that the little acts, I call it granito de arena. It's called moving one grain of sand at a time, but then you build these tremendous things. I'm proud that I have had an impact with many of you, frankly, to change lives. I mean, think about what we were able to do for so many working families when we passed earned sick days. Think about those kids that wouldn't have to tell worry that there wasn't going to be food because they had to go to the doctor, or the daughter who had to care for a parent or a child, that sandwich generation. I I find it so incredible and so humbling that the little things that we do together totally change lives. And so I find joy in that. I love building with people. I love organizing. And as you could tell, I love talking. I love engaging folks, because man, what it makes me feel most human to connect with people and to build something together. And whether I'm running for Congress or organizing, a group of moms in my community, I give it my all, because I feel like that's what I owe the world and all of you. So
Excellent. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Darcy, I have a question if I could,
Yes.
Chairwoman. So I think a version of this question might have been asked already, but obviously there's a lot of candidates in this race. Analilia, you and I have known each other a long time. Like Morris County Democrats, I feel like we have a very good process here. And we are kind of on the precipice of making real change for the better politically of Morris. So regardless of whether you win or lose, can we count on your support to be helpful in bringing all Democrats together, as we move forward past the primary?
I will share with you, when Senator Sanders withdrew from the presidential contest and endorsed uh, Joe Biden, then President-elect President Biden. You know, the senator asked myself and members of the team how we could imagine rebuilding from a moment in which we had been in conflict and how we could build forward. And I'm proud to have joined, you know, to have advised the senator that the way in which we could build back together was to identify the places in which people who supported Bernie Sanders found overlap with people who supported Joe Biden. And by focusing on the issues and getting both of our folks to see that we had more in common than disconnect, we were able to bring people into the fold and rebuild so that the party could in fact win. That's what we did. That's what we should do. I think, you know, we are in but a moment. It is a relay race, right? Democracy, our government, we are stewards for our children. So what we do in this moment, if it's destructive, we're just destroying it for the future. I mean, this isn't just, I'm not playing an organizer or community builder on TV. This is what I believe, okay? And so, yeah, of course, I would be working hard to ensure that where we have policy overlap, we're bringing people in. What I won't do is stay silent on the things that are impacting regular people on a daily. I will continue to make demands of myself, of you, of our leaders, because I think that's what we owe ourselves. This is what a democracy should be like. So
Yep.
we hold each other accountable. We push on ideas and we come together because we know the real enemy is rising authoritarianism and the fact that our government has been captured by extremists that are content to trade democracy for self-enrichment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairwoman, I just have one comment.
Absolutely.
I'm so happy that you brought up the earned sick leave because it just really brought back what we did early on. And I think, you know, you go on to other things. So thank you for that. And that was a big moment for our town.
It was great. It was great. You did awesome. Look, I think that there's just so much that we can do together. Sometimes it's hard to not feel cynicism or, you know, to feel disconnected from the process. I feel completely committed to the idea of bringing people in. That's how we make better policy. That's how we actually are better stewards of this democracy. So, thank you.
All right, guys, we are bumping up on our time limit. Thank you so much for joining us. If you would like to leave us with one final closing thought, we would love to hear it.
Well, I would just be honored to get the support of both the steering committee of the party itself. You know, I have shared that, you know, our national DNC has said that, you know, they're not engaging in primaries. They don't want to put their finger on it. But I do see this as an opportunity to just share my vision with as many people and to say, you know, we owe our best to each other. The chaos that we see in this moment is neither permanent nor is it the true example of who we are as Americans. I think that, you know, my life has been shaped and benefited from smart policy. I feel lucky and grateful that I benefited from Pell Grants and federally qualified health clinics, that I was able to go to college and then use those skills to uplift other people. And I just want an opportunity to continue to do that, either as the next congressional member of Congress for CD11, as well as the kind of leader organizer that never quits fighting for people. So thank you again for your time. I'm grateful to you, and I'll leave it there.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been wonderful to learn more about you, about what you've done, your vision for the district, and we are looking forward to seeing you next Sunday at the special nominating convention. So,
Yes,
till then.
thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for those who are watching.
Thank
Thank
you.
Be well. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.